to create some more content for you. He's talking about some directors he knows. These are the Teenage Film Snob hiatus shows.
Welcome to As a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob. The hiatus series continues. It's another episode. It's another opportunity to talk about some films we don't speak of as much on the podcast. The last couple of episodes, I focused on a more generalized, kind of broad topic, going through just some films from different regions. We did European cinema, Asian cinema, women behind the camera. It's been a minute, so let's go back and focus on a director. And the director I've chosen today is maybe one of the most underrated filmmakers in Hollywood, definitely the one who suffers the most criticism, which is quite interesting because looking over my series so far, it feels like just about every filmmaker I've talked about has been divisive. I haven't gone with like Spielberg or Fincher, for example. They tend to be well loved, although we will go to Fincher later in the series at some point. Every time, as I said, I record an episode, I think of 3 more directors I want to talk about. So we've got plenty of content to go. This will take us through until the hiatus is over for sure. But today's director hit the scene back in the 90s. And I actually thought that their probably most popular film was their debut, but they'd actually made a film before that. I haven't seen it, so I won't be talking about it. But today's filmmaker enjoyed a lot of success very early on. His first 2 films in particular, first 3, I would say even, that most people think of, brought a lot of critical success, a lot of box office success, some Academy kind of nods and stuff like that. And then, because he was known for having a bit of a shtick, and continued to lean into it, there was this weird kind of role reversal where the audience at some point turned on him. This is a filmmaker who made his bones, and continues to make his bones, by delivering films with a twist ending. And people have come after him for it, but I'm like, look, if you can do one great film that has a good twist ending, you're breathing rarefied air. If you can do it more than once, oh my goodness, we're in a whole different planet. Like, this is insane. I am, of course, talking about M Night Shyamalan. I think M Night Shyamalan is a fantastic storyteller. I think he's really creative, very inventive, has some absolute bangers on his filmography, to be honest. And I'm not just talking about the old ones. Of course, the old ones are very popular and have an air of classic about them now. But even some of the more recent ones, I think because his name is attached to them, it immediately gets a little bit of an eyebrow raise or an eye roll because people are expecting the twist. But again, no one else is really doing it on the regular. And the fact that this is his thing, I really like. I looked over his filmography. There are a handful of movies I haven't seen. So I haven't seen Lady in the Water. I haven't seen After Earth. And I haven't seen his least popular film, The Last Airbender. I will watch all of them. They're just not readily available in Australia. So I need to be able to get them on physical so I can watch them and enjoy them properly. So once they're available, or if I can import them from overseas, I'll definitely watch them, and then I will review my list. Interestingly, looking over Shyamalan's filmography, this might be the filmmaker who I've watched or rewatched his films the least. Going through them, the first 6, I've only seen each of them once, which is kind of unusual for me. But the top 4 I've seen multiple times. The top 2 I've seen probably 5 or 6 times each. The third and fourth I've seen at least twice. So I'm not sure why that is. It's certainly not an assessment of the quality of work. As I said, I'm not going to talk about filmmakers I don't like. I'm not going to talk about films I don't like. So I definitely am a fan. I just don't know why I haven't watched them as much. But maybe we'll uncover that as we go through today's episode. So without further ado, we're going to go through 10 of M Night Shyamalan's films from lowest to highest. The rules, as always, I'm only talking about feature films. I'm not talking about shorts. I'm not going to rank anything I haven't seen. And anything I've only seen once as a default will be lower on the list. So, starting out with number 10, this is definitely my least favorite of M Night Shyamalan's films. I'm not even going to lie, there's definitely films that I do really enjoy. This one I did struggle with a little bit. The film I'm talking about is his most recent film, and it is Trap. I was really excited for Trap. I was really looking forward to it. I dug the trailer. I thought the trailer was going to be a misdirect, given Shyamalan's history with twists, and the fact that they revealed in the trailer that Josh Hartnett, spoilers, but it's not really a spoiler, was the killer, the guy abducting people and killing them. I just couldn't believe that would be a plot point they'd give away. I thought it had to be a misdirect, and I thought maybe the guy he had in his basement in the trailer was actually the real killer. Probably would have been a more interesting film. It's still fine. It's not a bad movie. There's a lot to enjoy about it. We need to step away from the critique that it's a platform to advertise his daughter's musical career. A lot of people came after him for that. I understand that critique, but we also need to understand that, nepotism happens. Nepotism happens in Hollywood. Every filmmaker's doing it. Rodriguez, I talked about recently, he put all of his family in his films. Kevin Smith's put his daughter and his wife in the films. Everyone does it. Edgar Wright put his mum in Hot Fuzz. Do you know what I mean? Everyone does it. So we need to take that out and step away from that and just focus on the film itself. The problem I have with the film is it just doesn't go anywhere for a long time. And I will rewatch it and give it another go, of course. I like the second half better than the first half, and I think I'm in the minority there. I think most people prefer the first half to the second half. Also, not sure if I'm convinced by Josh Hartnett's performance. Everyone was saying that he was the standout, and they loved him in it. I found his performance to be quite goofy, and I actually felt like he was in a very different film from the rest of the cast. I felt the rest of the cast were playing it very straight, very seriously, and he was kind of being a little bit silly, winking at the camera, and I don't know whether that took me out of the film. And that's not a critique of Josh Hartnett as a performer. I love Josh Hartnett. I talked about him very lovingly in The Faculty. On a recent episode, I've talked about loving him in Oppenheimer and being thrilled to see him return. I even like him in the Halloween movie. I am a big Josh Hartnett fan. Sin City, I didn't mention him when I talked about that film, but I love Josh Hartnett in that as well. So it's not even me not liking an actor thing, I do like Josh Hartnett as a performer. I just didn't quite get it in this movie, but I'll give it another go and I'll see how I feel about it. But the action is good. I think that once we get to Josh Hartnett's house in the third act, again, this is where most people kind of jumped off. That's when it really got interesting for me, the idea that pretty much everyone in the house knows what's going on, but they can't vocalize it, and they're trying to get out of this very sticky situation. I really enjoyed that. One thing I like about Shyamalan as a filmmaker is his attention to building tension, making, ordinary people experience discomfort and making the audience feel uncomfortable about it as well. That's really one of Shyamalan's strengths, and I really like what he did with that in Trap. It just took a long time to get there. I also don't know how I feel about the father-daughter relationship and all of that. I can see what he was trying to do with the film, and as a father myself of a daughter, I think that's why I struggled. I love seeing father-daughter relationships in film, especially when they're done really, really well, because it makes me think about being a parent myself, and it generally makes me feel happy or full of love, or it makes me feel despair if it's, a horror film or a thriller. And this didn't really make me feel anything. And I think that's the problem I have with it. But I will give Trap another go, because I don't think it's an awful film. I don't even think it's a bad film. I just don't think it quite resonated with me on the first watch. But I was also watching all these movies at 3 a.m. while I was living in the UK, because I was on a different sleep schedule. So I'll come back to Trap and I'll see how it goes. In ninth place, I'm going to talk about Glass. Just like Trap, Glass was a hotly awaited film for me. Again, I'm a huge Shyamalan fan. I love his stuff. So I'm not just saying this, and I guess I'm going to mention it a few times, but they're hotly awaited. I always want to see what he does next. And Glass was coming off Split, which is a film that I adore, and I'll talk more about Split later. So knowing that they were uniting characters from both Split and Unbreakable, I could not wait for this film. And I think my disappointment in the movie came from the fact that it was very much self-contained to one location. It was very slow, and the final, you got Bruce Willis's character who's meant to be indestructible. You've got the Beast who's meant to be this, multi-personality, non-human or kind of character, and you've got the smartest man in the world, and their fights in a parking lot, and Bruce Willis's character, spoilers, drowns in a puddle. And again, there's a lot to love about that film, and the performances are really good, and Anya Taylor-Joy is fantastic, and there's a lot of tension, but it just feels like it took a long time to not really go anywhere. And I think that's where Shyamalan can fall. I've talked about loving him, and I will continue to talk about these films very lovingly as we move through the list. But I think the risk of being a filmmaker or a storyteller who does focus on providing suspense and twists and shock in each of their films, you're going to take big swings, which I love. I love this about Shyamalan. But it also means if you miss, then it can fall a little bit flat. And I feel like with Shyamalan's films, because he's building tension, he's trying to stretch it out and keep the audience guessing, sometimes there's a lot of nothing going on. And if you're not filling that nothing with something, then it does miss the mark a little bit. If we talk about something like Split, a big portion of that film is 2 or 3 girls trapped in a room with no windows. And that could easily fall apart and be boring, but it's not. The same could be said about The Visit. The same could be said about Knock at the Cabin. The same could be said about Old. A lot of the time it's people trying to figure out what's going on and nothing's happening. And that can very easily become boring. And most of the time I think Shyamalan knocks it out of the park. But I think with Trap and I think with Glass, it just didn't have enough going on to engage me personally. They're not bad films. I like them. I own them. I will watch them again. They're just lower on the list for me. Coming in at 8th place is the film that many people heralded as Shyamalan's return to form. It's a movie, again, I've only seen once. It came recommended to me to a friend of mine who I used to have a podcast with over 10 years ago. And it's a film called The Visit. The Visit is the story of 2 young children who go to visit their grandparents it's either a weekend or a week away. And during the day, everything seems normal. And then in the evening, it gets a little bit unusual and creepy. And it's got a bit of a paranormal activity feel to it. The grandparents start doing weird things, behaving strangely. There's a lot of jump scares in the night cam footage. And in many ways, I guess it was a return to form for him because he was coming back to more of a horror thriller element. I won't spoil the twist for the film. It is 10 years old. You probably should have seen The Visit by now, but if you haven't, that's fine. I thought it was really well paced. I thought it was really interesting, and I did like the twist quite a bit. It's just lower because I've only seen it the one time, as with the next few I'm going to talk about. And I just think, whilst it's a very effective film, I kind of found the plot a little bit basic, and the ones I'm going to talk about next I enjoyed a lot more. But still a really good film. The Visit's definitely worth your time. If you can get your hands on it, go and check it out. And get prepared for some pretty effective jump scares. There's definitely a few that got under my skin, particularly that grandma. Coming in at 7th place is another recent addition to the filmography. It's a film starring Dave Bautista, which made me very excited to see it, because I love Dave Bautista. I first really discovered him in Guardians of the Galaxy, as most people did. And this is one of the first films to really showcase his acting ability away from that franchise, away from the makeup and the comedy, and just show him deliver dialogue. He's done a handful of other things. He was in Spectre, but I felt he was kind of underused in Spectre. He was in Blade Runner, but again, he doesn't have a lot of time to do a lot. He's good in the scenes he's in, but this put him front and center. He's the leader of this 4-person cult who had come to tell you that, hey, the world is going to end unless we make a sacrifice. We need to do it. You need to listen to us. The other reason I was really excited about this film is that one of the cult members is played by Rupert Grint, and Rupert Grint hasn't done a lot post-Harry Potter by choice. He hasn't really pursued an acting career as much. I think he got a bit burnt out from being in a franchise film that lasted his entire childhood. He's done a couple of things. He was in Wild Target, which was really fun. He was in Thunderpants, which is released during the Harry Potter years, where he played a science kid who invented a rocket powered by farts. Definitely worth your time. But this is one of the few kind of post-Potter projects that got a lot of mainstream attention. I really liked it. You get Dave Bautista delivering these really long, rambling monologues. And what's so scary about him in the film is that he believes what he's saying. He's locked these people up. He won't kill them, but he's going to force them to kill themselves for the greater good, to save the world. And throughout the film, it's all, it's 7 people in a cabin. That's the entire location. It never really deviates from there. And during the events of the film, they'll turn on the TV and you'll start to see apocalyptic images show up. And the whole time in the film, you're guessing, is this real or is it a hoax? Are they right for believing in this, or have they kind of set this up just so they can get away with, some sort of sick torture fetish? And I won't spoil it, but I will say you do get the answer by the end of the film. And this is a really good example of when Shyamalan is hitting his stride. The pacing in the film is excellent. I really like the build-up. I like all the characters and the way they move around the camera, move around the scene. I like that our victims go back and forth on their opinion, whether they believe the cult or not. I like that the cult have changing opinions. Some of the lower down members have a change of heart and wonder whether maybe they've signed up for the wrong thing, and maybe the cult isn't accurate, and maybe the world isn't going to end, and maybe they are just killing people. It's a really fascinating flick. This, to me, I would say more so than The Visit, is a return to form. I like The Visit, but this is just doing some really interesting stuff, and it's relying heavily on the performances. There's no frills, there's no bells and whistles, there's no kind of it's just the writing and the performances that is really delivering the film, and I think it's incredibly underrated. I think far less people saw this than should have, and those who have seen it, I feel, were quite unfair to it. It's a really quite incredible film. I like Knock at the Cabin quite a bit. I should have seen it more than once. Coming in at 6th place, which gets us to the end of the first half, is a film I only saw for the first time this year. And because I've only seen it once and quite recently, I have to keep it in the lower rankings because I haven't seen it more than once yet. I also knew a lot going into it as well, but it's really great. It's got Joaquin Phoenix. It's got Bryce Dallas Howard. I am, of course, talking about The Village. And The Village is a really fascinating flick. I imagine most people listening to this podcast have seen The Village, but The Village follows around this, spoiler alert, a village, of people who live in the woods, and you don't really know when the movie is set. I'm not going to spoil the film for you. If you have managed to dodge this film and spoilers for 20 years, far be it from me to ruin it for you now. It is available on Disney Plus in Australia, so I imagine Hulu in America maybe. But you don't know when it is or when it's set, but it seems to be kind of a pre-industrial revolution setting. They don't use modern medicine, they don't have technology, they work the land. And during the events of the film, when one of their people are shot and injured, they have to decide whether they're going to let him die or try and find help. And Bryce Dallas Howard's character, who is blind, if I remember correctly, decides to venture out beyond the forest. The forest is meant to be full of creatures with teeth and claws and, quite violent and tear the village people apart. But she's going to venture up beyond there and try and find help so she can save Joaquin Phoenix. I think it's Joaquin Phoenix who gets shot. It's an incredible flick. I really enjoyed it. I knew all the spoilers. I knew the twist and everything. And I do think that did diminish my enjoyment slightly because it's one of those films where it's not like a little surprise. It's not like, in a Marvel film where, Spider-Man shows up unexpectedly. Like, that's a cool twist, but it doesn't impact the plot too much. This won't impact the plot. You can still watch it and enjoy it. It's a well-made film. And the thing I like about M Night Shyamalan's movies is that the twists are not there as a stunt. The whole film isn't dependent on the twist. I think the pitfalls you run into when you do write films with twist endings is that once you know the twist, the film loses its meaning, loses its value. I don't feel that way about M Night Shyamalan's films, which I think he needs to be commended for as well, because it's so easy to fall into that trap, and then the film does kind of lose its value, and then you won't go back and rewatch them. So The Village is excellent. Really, again, very suspenseful. Even though I knew where it was going, it works incredibly well. The performances are fantastic. And even though I knew the twist, I still did enjoy seeing the reveal on screen. So can 100% recommend all of these films so far. Now we're heading into the top 5. This next film is the last of M. Night Shyamalan's I've only seen once, and then we're going into the ones I've seen multiple times. So in 5th place, I'm going again with a more recent film. This one came out during the pandemic. The trailer was incredibly scary. This film was marketed well. Maybe too well, because the film isn't actually as scary as the trailer made it out to be, and nor do I think was it intended to be scary. It's more a fascinating kind of expose or exposition on a what-if scenario. But the film I'm talking about today is Old. Old features Thomasin McKenzie, I want to say, from Last Night in Soho. I can't remember any of the cast in this film. But basically what happens is this family are on holiday. They head down to this beach. They get trapped down there. They can't get back up. And then they find out that something on the beach, and I can't remember whether it's revealed to be the water or the sand or something they ate, but basically they're exposed to something while they're down on the beach, and it causes them to age rapidly. Over the course of the film, that the children become adults, the adults become grandparents. There's a really upsetting scene with a baby. I won't spoil it for you. But that, I would say, of all of M. Night Shyamalan's films from the last 10, 15 years, is probably one of the most upsetting things he's committed to screen. So full points for getting under my skin, M. Night Shyamalan, especially when I was a new parent, because I wasn't expecting that, and it was deeply troubling. But just incredibly, incredibly well made. I really like it. I like it because it's a study on the idea of not having enough time. We're very time-focused people, as a species. We're very focused on time, not having enough time. We think about our own mortality. We worry about getting old. We worry about our bodies kind of not working the way they did when they were younger. We worry about all of these things, and this film is very much a study on that. I don't know if you can hear that rain that just came in, but there's a rainstorm going on right now. So I think Old is fascinating, and I don't think it gets enough love, and I think it's very underappreciated because it maybe wasn't as scary as people were hoping it to be, or they thought the concept was a bit silly, but I love it. I think it's a really great case study, and I think it's a really good exploration into something that we can all relate to. We all worry about getting old. We all worry about not being able to do the things we could when we were younger. We worry about all that sort of stuff. And this film kind of shows us all of that in 90 minutes. And I think it's really well done. So now we're going to dive into the movies I've seen multiple times. Number 4, I will be honest, I don't remember much of it, because even though I've seen it multiple times, it's been a long time since I've seen it. But it is an incredible movie. Starring Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, and it is the film Unbreakable. And Unbreakable is really great because it's a pre-2000 superhero film that wasn't marketed as a superhero film. It wasn't sold that way. It was a great surprise for a lot of people. And before the comic book movies really kind of exploded, it was a really unique, original idea that we just hadn't seen before. And it posits the theory, what would happen if superheroes did exist, or people with special abilities existed in the world, and how would they navigate the world? And we have Bruce Willis playing, I think his name is David Dunn, if I remember correctly, and he's an indestructible man. And he doesn't even know that he's indestructible. He just thinks he's a regular guy, and over the course of the film, he starts to realize that he's never been sick, he's never been hurt, he's never been injured, and he might be a perfect specimen, and now he wonders if he has a responsibility to use those abilities. On the other end, we have a character called Mr. Glass, played by Samuel L. Jackson. He's the smartest man in the world, but he's also the complete opposite of David Dunn, where, David Dunn can't get hurt and can't get sick. Samuel L. Jackson's character has only known pain. His bones are paper thin. He's in a wheelchair. He was constantly getting hurt at school, and he was ridiculed for his many injuries. And he became obsessed with comic books and then wondered and posited the question himself, if I am the weakest, most fragile being on Earth, surely there must be an equal opposite to me. And so he starts staging, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but it is a 30-year-old film. He starts staging these elaborate crime scenes, causing trains to run off the rails, causing aeroplanes to crash from the sky, trying to find the most indestructible man. And look, whilst I don't remember all the finer details, that's enough. That's enough for me. And if you haven't seen Unbreakable, and a lot of people haven't, because they think of the two big ones that came out in the 90s, so Unbreakable did kind of get overshadowed by Shyamalan's other work. But if you haven't seen Unbreakable, it is definitely worth checking out. It's such a fascinating film and very, very cool. Now we're heading into number 3. And the top 3 films, I think any day of the week you could move them around. You could rotate them. And again, that's a sign of a good filmmaker. I've talked about this with a few filmmakers recently in fact, during this entire series, that once we get to the pointy end, to the top half or the top few, on any day, my opinion would change. And that's the sign of someone who knows what they're doing, who can tell really great, engaging stories. And what I like about this list and most of the lists I've done is it's never just from a certain era. Like this one, yes, 2 of the 3 are from the beginning of M Night Shyamalan's career, but one of them's from far later in his career. And I really like that. It goes to show that, he's not a one-trick pony. He's not a guy who kind of got lucky at the beginning of his career and then has not done much with it since. There's some fantastic work in these top 3, and of course in the entire top 10. So in third place, I'm putting Signs. Signs is a really great film. Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix, they play a father and son who live on a farm, and their farm starts to get these weird messages printed in their crops, these crop circles. And Joaquin Phoenix is a bit of a tinfoil hat wearing kid. He wants to believe it's aliens. I think it's him. I can't remember the relationship and the dynamic, but I think it's him who thinks it's aliens first. I think Mel Gibson, being a Catholic man, doesn't want to jump to conclusions and wants to look at it through faith and evidence and stuff like that. But yeah, these crop circles start appearing, and then it's not just in their farm, it's all around the world. And then throughout the course of the film, footage starts appearing, and we start seeing these invaders, and they're very humanoid. And they're shown in very quick glimpses. It's not like, like War of the Worlds, where suddenly there's these big machines everywhere, and you're like, oh my God, there's tentacles. Like, they're shown just in very short clips, very much like the Bigfoot footage of the 70s. Have you ever seen that? If you haven't, look up the Bigfoot footage from the 70s. It's definitely inspired the scenes in Signs. And it's just a great alien invasion film, but it's not a big blockbuster action film. It's suspenseful. It's got a lot of tension, as we talked about a lot in this episode. Tension tends to be the main ingredient in these films. The idea of converting someone who is very faith-based in their religion to then maybe accept that there are beings from another world as well. You also deal with the tragedy of Mel Gibson's wife having passed away, but she somehow knew about the alien. She's connected to it in some way as well, because she left a message for her daughter to help take the aliens out and stuff like that. Really incredible stuff. Really scary in places. Holds up incredibly, incredibly well. But the next 2 films are just a little bit better, for me anyway. I didn't know how to rank these. There's the obvious number 1 pick, the one that I think everyone's going to choose. And I did want to upset the apple cart and put a different film in first place, but if I stand them next to each other, they're both incredible. Both really, really well-made films. If I had to give the edge to one, I think one film is particularly enjoyable because of one major performance, whereas the other one, I think, as a whole, has multiple and that's not to say that it's not incredible performances, but there's one performance in particular in one of these films, whereas the other film, I think, is a bit more well-rounded and just definitely stands the test of time. It's had the longevity to stand the test of time. The other film being more recent, I'm going to put just a little bit lower. So in second place, I'm going with Split. I love Split. I've seen Split probably 10 times, to be honest. I really enjoy it. I saw it when I was traveling in LA. I think I might have already gotten engaged to Tina at this point. I can't remember. But we went to the ArcLight, which no longer exists, but it was this beautiful cinema in LA. And we saw it projected on the dome. They had this, so the way they used to watch films in the ArcLight, they had regular cinemas, and then there was one screen, and it was a domed roof, and they were projected on the dome, and you would lean back and watch it on the roof, and it gave it a more immersive experience. It was wonderful. But Split follows, I can't remember his full name, something Wendell Crumb. I wish I remembered his full name now, but James McAvoy plays a character who has multiple personalities. That's in the trailer. It's revealed quite early on in the film. It's not really a spoiler. He's someone who's been abducting people. He abducts Anya Taylor-Joy at the very beginning of the movie, and locks her away with two other girls. They were all at like a birthday party together. And it's not quite clear what his plan is, but at first they think he's just kind of this weird guy who's messing with them and playing mind games, but then we start to learn he actually does have multiple personalities. He plays Patricia, an elderly woman. He plays a more serious kind of muscle guy, a guy who works for the main character within his head. He plays a young boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. I can't remember exactly how old he is. And there's something like 20 personalities. I'm sure I'm getting the number wrong. I'm sure people are screaming at their speakers right now. But ultimately, the film kind of jumps around between the girls being locked up, James McAvoy's adventures both at the compound, but also going in to see a therapist and unpacking what it's like to have multiple personalities, and flashbacks around Anya Taylor-Joy's childhood. And those flashbacks exist pretty much solely to set up that she's a survivor, and that to justify her being able to hold her own against James McAvoy's character. It's spectacular. The performances are really good. This is not the first time I saw Anya Taylor-Joy, but this was her mainstream breakout. I've previously seen her in The Witch, which I talked about on the beginning of this whole hiatus series. And then I saw her in this, and I was like, wow, this actress is incredible. I already thought she was incredible in The Witch, but this really showed she had mainstream capabilities, and now she's taken over the world. Like, she's in everything, and deservedly so. It also gave me a whole new appreciation for James McAvoy. I'd seen him in things, not just as Professor Xavier, but also in Filth, and a ton of other films I can't think of right now. I wish I didn't have just X-Men and Filth as examples, but I'd seen him in quite a few things. But this, again, kind of revolutionized what we all knew about James McAvoy. And that climax, again, there's two elements to the end of this film, and I guess there's kind of two twists in the film, because the first one is, they keep talking about the beast, like he's locked inside Wendell's mind, and if he's released, he's going to bring hell to planet Earth and stuff like that. And you keep wondering whether the beast is real or not. And then there's this incredible sequence, and to my understanding, there's no prosthetics or CGI. It's just James McAvoy's workout routine. He contorts himself in a way that he makes himself look bigger. And then you start seeing him like bend metal bars and climb on the roof and stuff like that. And you're like, oh my God, this guy is definitely a beast. And then the second twist is right at the very end, just before the credits begin, or maybe it's just after the credits end. And it reveals that it's actually a sequel or tied into Unbreakable. And we see Bruce Willis at a cafe. I love Split. It's so well done. And again, like the suspense, the tension, the character building, the mystery of it all. It just works so incredibly well. It's so fun. So it's interesting. Like, it's this very deep conversation about human psychology and mental health, but it's also incredible popcorn flick at the same time. And I think it might be M Night Shyamalan's true magic trick, because very few films can dig that deep and be so serious while also entertaining. But there had to be a number one, and I don't think this will surprise anyone. I imagine this last film will be number one on everyone's list. I was trying to be different. I was trying to be, not like everyone else. But ultimately, The Sixth Sense is perfect. The Sixth Sense is incredible. I remember the trailers on TV back when I was a kid. I would have been I wouldn't have even been 10, I don't think. I remember sitting at McDonald's with my family and my nana, who was still alive. She would have been... she would have been in her late 70s, and she had seen trailers for it. She knew about it. Like, this 70-plus-year-old woman knew about The Sixth Sense because it was getting that much attention. And I didn't end up seeing it until years later, once I started working in the video store. And it's incredible getting a child actor like Haley Joel Osment to be as convincing as he is in this film. Toni Collette, everyone talks about Toni Collette in Hereditary, including myself, and I agree. She was underappreciated then, but she's definitely underappreciated in Sixth Sense as well. Bruce Willis, again, incredible performance. His storyline and that big twist ending, which we all know now, wonderful. Misha Barton, who shows up as one of the ghosts. The premise of this film, if you haven't heard of The Sixth Sense, and I won't spoil it for you, but the premise of The Sixth Sense is that Haley Joel Osment is a young boy, and for whatever reason, he can see ghosts. He can see dead people. It's in the trailer. I can see dead people, or I see dead people. And he's been haunted by all of these deceased people, and they're not necessarily malicious, but they have unresolved business on Earth, and so they keep floating around until they can resolve it. And a lot of them, were victims of violent crimes that went unsolved. And so Haley Joel Osment starts kind of communicating about it with his therapist, played by Bruce Willis. It's a masterpiece. It's scary. It's heartbreaking. It's gripping. It's edge of your seat, like white knuckle, adrenaline at times. It's just a perfect film. I'm not saying anything new here. I don't think anyone is shocked by this. If you're listening to this, it's probably your number one M Night Shyamalan film as well. But if you haven't seen it for some reason, and I hear this a lot about 90s films and those older than 90s films now, it's overrated. It's overhyped. I hear too much about it. I listened to a podcast today and someone said that Jaws was overrated, and they said that they won't watch The Thing because everyone keeps telling them to watch The Thing. Some flicks just live up to the hype. Jaws lives up to the hype, The Thing lives up to the hype, and The Sixth Sense definitely lives up to the hype. All you're doing is depriving yourself of a great film. So those are my picks for M. Night Shyamalan. Definitely an underappreciated director, a very talented, inventive storyteller, whose films are worthy of your time. And he doesn't make long movies. That's something I really like about M. Night Shyamalan. If I had to guess, I think all of his movies, except for Glass, are less than 2 hours long. I could be wrong, but I think they're all less than 2 hours long. For some reason, Glass felt really long to me. Let's have a quick look. I know you love listening to me do admin on the podcast, so let me have a quick look and see if I can get the running time for these movies. Not all of them, just a few of them. If the internet lets me find them. Apparently it doesn't. It might not let me. Let's have a look. I feel like they're all relatively short, but we'll go straight to Glass, because Glass is the one I felt like was definitely really long. Let's see if I was right or not. Glass is only 2 hours and 9 minutes. It definitely felt longer than that. Now I am curious to see if any of his movies are longer than 2 hours and 9 minutes, because Glass feels like a long movie. It was kind of just not super engaging for me. The Happening I didn't mention either. I haven't seen The Happening. I've seen bits of it, but not enough to put in the ranking. Let's have a look and see if anything is longer than 2 hours and 9 minutes. Trap, hour 45. Knock at the Cabin, hour 40. See, they're all short. Old, hour 48. Split, hour 57. Totally worth the running time. The Visit, an hour 34. The Village, an hour 48. Signs, an hour 46. Unbreakable, an hour 46. Sixth Sense, an hour 40. So that's why Glass felt so long. It's because it's half an hour longer than most of his films. 40 minutes longer than some of his films. I just wish they had done more with the time, ultimately. Well, hopefully you dug this episode. Hopefully you're enthusiastic about checking out the work of M. Night Shyamalan. I'll go through my ranking one more time and then we'll get out of here. So in 10th place, it's Trap. Glass at 9th. The Visit at 8th. Knock at the Cabin is in 7th place and The Village is in 6th place. Our top 5 are Old, then Unbreakable in 4th, Signs in 3rd, number 2 is Split, and of course the first number 1 is The Sixth Sense. Thank you, as always, for supporting the show. Thank you for listening to the hiatus series. Hopefully you're getting something out of it and digging these rankings. As always, reach out to me in the comments. Let me know, do you like M Night Shyamalan? Do you agree with me that he's a little bit underrated? Do you have a different ranking to me? Follow us on all the socials, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We're on all of those. Get in touch with us, and we'll have more lists for you coming up. But as I say in this podcast every week, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. I'll see you next week.